Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Art Out of Time, Unknown Comics Visionaries, 1900 to 1969. This is a wonderful book edited by Dan Nadell, noted comic scholar. He's been around writing great essays about comics and editing things and curating museum shows. And this book is really amazing, and, it doesn't focus on all the so-called greats of comic book history, like so many other books. Will Eisner's not in here, Lou Fine, Reed Crandall, all those guys, Jack Kirby. This is the guys who were maybe a little uglier, drew a little uglier, drew a little stranger, definitely drew odder and weirder stuff than those guys. They were basically visionaries. They were following their own strange personal muse. But there's some amazing discoveries to be found in this book. Highly recommend this book. It's a really beautifully produced book. It came out from Abrams in 2006. As you can see, it's very hefty. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And a lot of stuff is probably stuff you might not know of, unless you're like a hardcore comic expert. So many guys in here I never heard of until I read this book. Let's get the slipcover off, or dust jacket, I should say. There's a picture of Dan Nadell, very good-looking guy, and a little bio about him. So the cover is this is from one of the weirdest cartoonists in the book, who actually I forgot his name right now. Let me. Herbert Crowley. And I love these end papers where the designer just took a bunch of old comic book covers and laid them out in a very pleasing manner. So here's the title pages. And a dedication and a table of contents. So he's divided the book up into 5 sections. Some of these sections, to be honest, I don't really see the difference. Suffice to say, all these artists are very kind of odd. They're all kind of, not drawing like anyone else of their day or even ever since. Though some of them are very clear-cut delineation. Slapstick, for example, is all zany humor comics. And one of them, Words and Pictures, focusing on guys who were maybe more renowned for their prose, their writing, than their art. Really interesting introduction. And this is kind of nice, a brief chronology of modern comics, including other things that are outside the purview of this book. Just giving you what was going on at the time some of these comics came out. It really puts it in context. I thought it was a really smart idea to put that in here. So the first section is exercises in exploration. And it's basically the summation of this is, these comics go places that are not always real and not always pleasant, but they are always solid, colorful, and richly conceived. So we start off with Harry Grant Dart. He had a very short-run comic called The Explorigator. And, these are from 1908. I think they didn't even last more than 2 years, or maybe even less than a year. This is very much like Little Nemo and Slumberland by Winsor McCay. Very imaginative, kind of for children. But look at these great character designs. This is just beautiful stuff. It very much reads like a Little Nemo, where he's going to these fantastical Art Nouveau-inspired fantasy landscapes. Like in this one, he goes to visit the Lady in the Moon, who's this, nocturnal empress. I love all of these characters in the background, are so interesting. The one flaw in this book is that it's not big enough, because he does a lot of Sunday comic strip pages in here, and sometimes it's really hard to read the words. And of course, the art's getting short shrift. I wish Abrams would have sprung for at least, 11 by 17 size. That would have really made this book amazing. It's very like kinder kids. Just an amazing artist. This is just some beautiful cartooning going on here. I love this frog. That's from the cover. I bet if Jim Woodring saw this, he'd have conniptions. So basically it's about these kids who travel around in this airship called the Explorigator. And that was the shtick of the comic. Look at this insanely drawn fish. That looks like something from like a Japanese demon from like 18th century Japanese art or something. I just love in the background these like faint cityscapes. They're just beautiful. But they're not even colored in. It's just like a misty background. But he puts so much detail and thought into them. Next we have Howard Nostrand. And in the 50s, Howard Nostrand had a run of some really interesting comic work. Look at this great, like, Will Eisner inspired art here. Kind of like film noir. The story's called What's Happening at 8:30 p.m. And we see this little dude walking around. And it's kind of got this dreamlike, well, nightmarish quality to it. Where it's just like, this guy's just walking around and all of a sudden he's like, hey, where is everybody? It doesn't seem to make sense. We see his face and he looks like a weird little alien dude. Yet he's still like on a recognizable planet Earth, with the architecture and his clothing. Look at this. This is such good storytelling. Really nice art. He sees some guy warming himself by a fire, just sitting outside. And he says, don't you know what's happening at 8:30? And the protagonist says, no, what are you talking about? And the guy's like, well, you better clear out of here. It's going to get pretty rough around here at 8:30. And he says, what are you staying for? And this old guy says, me? I'm tired of running. I've had enough of it. It's like, whoa. Some pretty heavy stuff for ostensibly a kid's comic, Man, I really dig this art. I can see like Frank Miller loving this comic. Young Frank Miller. And so the actual ending is pretty dopey. It's trying to have some ironic, weird twist at the end. And it starts to rain, and the protagonist realizes, he says, no, not rain. It's 8:30. And it's almost like acid rain. It begins to burn him alive. Because those streaks weren't rain. They were all-consuming, all-powerful X-rays. So I guess the whole shtick of the story is he's a germ. And I guess inside the human body looks like a 1940s city. And the X-rays are killing him. So it's more about the art for that one. Now, this is the guy I mentioned earlier, Herbert Crowley. This guy's apparently a total mystery, the artist himself. He just kind of disappeared. What we do know about him was he was like a fine artist. He was in the Armory show, the famous Armory show that kind of introduced modern art to the 20th century. It was, I think, 1908 or something like that, early part of the 20th century. But then he decided to do a comic book. I guess just like Feininger, He went on to be a fine artist. This guy already was a fine artist, though. And these comics are so baffling and weird. I mean, these could totally be in Kramer's Ergot. And, you wouldn't be like, oh, this seems out of date or something. First of all, he just has all these background figures who look like tin soldiers. Just constantly. And they're like, literally, they're as static and unmoving as tin soldiers. They seem to have no life to them. But they're like a decorative motif in all of these. The main character is this guy. I'll find a bigger one. Maybe here. This guy is so just, I don't know. Like, it kind of reminds me of like My Pal Foot Foot, Or it's just such an iconic looking figure. Like, wait, I must have seen this before, and maybe in a nightmare or a dream. I don't know, but it's just very almost timeless. Like this should be a popular comic character on people's T-shirts. It just seems like it has this resonance to it because it's so odd. And these are told in like couplets in poetic form. All the writing, and it's very, very strange writing. The whole thing is just amazing. Like this comic strip couldn't exist probably even 5 years after 1910. That's when these are from. Because in the early days of comics, they really didn't know what they were doing. The editors were just like, let's try it. So that's how Feininger, got the Kinder Kids in. It was pretty bizarre. And this is even more bizarre than that, because it's not really telling linear stories. I guess there's a plot, quote unquote, in each of these, but they're very strange. And this is the kind of interesting things he throws into the writing. I have to really get down here. The type is so small. Smiling is really but life's happy side. The teachings of sorrow are also our guide. Kind feelings for others, whom troubles pursue, make nature complete. This has happened to you. Because all of a sudden, Wigglemutt starts crying. I don't know, it's kind of profound to me. So here we can see, I wish they were like all printed this big. So you can really see just these bizarre characters. There's also this character, the Ding Dong Bird, who shows up all the time and just proclaims, I'm the Ding Dong Bird. And it seems to be an omen of ill fortune. It's not a good thing, but he doesn't do anything. But it's not good. It's like, shit, the Ding Dong Bird's here. Not like he ever does anything mean or anything. Look at also these backgrounds with all these lines. Look at this mountain, just the cross-hatching here. So it's interesting, the backgrounds are so cross-hatched, but then the front characters are so, kind of, not necessarily loose, they're actually very tight, but, not shaded much. Yeah, I think there's only maybe 2 months worth of these strips, and I think they haven't even found them all. I think a lot of them are lost. See, look how tiny this is. This is a damn shame. This was so hard to read. I mean, I'm an old man. Maybe you younger readers wouldn't have a problem, but this is fucking tiny. But you can still, even at this tiny size, the art looks wonderful. It's just a shame it's so small. There's that Ding Dong Bird again. Ding dong, absurd, absurd. But here I am, the Ding Dong Bird. These are very odd and amazing. Here's one of my favorites. Herby, drawn by Ogden Whitney and written by Richard Hughes. Shane O'Shea was his pen name. It could be Robert Hughes, guys. I might be making that a mistake. But Herby was a comic that started in 1958, and it was just one of the most imaginative comics ever. On this channel, we often look at a lot of the Mort Weisinger edited Superman titles. Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane. These make those look like paragons of logic and just good, perfect storytelling. These are so amazing. But unlike those comics, which have all of these convoluted, silly things happen, Herbie genuinely just has a wonderful sense of imagination. And they're actually funny as hell. But the strange thing about Herbie is there's some weird things going on so Herbie's this kid. Obviously, odd-looking kid, as you can see. He's basically omnipotent. Nobody knows this, though, on Earth, on normal Earth. His parents just think he's a big loser. Well, his father actually calls him a big fat nothing all the time. He's actually quite verbally abusive, the father, which is very strange. So he thinks his son's a lazy good-for-nothing. This scene, the wife has to restrain him. It looks like he's about to pummel him. But this is all played for laughs. I guess in the 50s, that was, you could do that. Even the mother, she's not as mean, but she's kind of like, Herbie. He's what he is. So Herbie goes off to stay with his grandfather because the mother's just like, you got to get out of here. Your father's furious with you. And his grandfather's just like him. He's just a graying older version. And just every other panel, something crazy happens. Like Herbie doesn't like how slow the train is. So he grabs the steam thing and just flies through the air with it, using it as a jetpack, if you will. So another power of Herbie's is he has these magic lollipops. He has a whole arsenal of them. Each one gives him a different power. So I guess they hear a news report that the Loch Ness Monster is ravaging through England, and they can't stop him. Just his journey there is just fun as hell. He's walking underwater. He's walking under the Atlantic Ocean on the floor. We see all these crazy fish. We see some mer people. And another funny thing about Herbie is every woman in the world, in the fantasy world, is in love with Herbie. So this mermaid is going, sigh, even though she's got this handsome merman in her arms. So he makes it to England. He sneaks into Winston Churchill's office because he can't make it by the guards. He uses an invisible lollipop. When he gets there, Churchill's bulldog bites Herbie in the ass. And then Herbie bites him. Oh, that panel made me laugh out loud last night. I love that. I love also just the silly idea that, it's Winston Churchill. Of course he has a bulldog, because that was his nickname. And he hangs out at 10 Downing Street, So, of course, Winston Churchill knows him. And it's just like, Herbie, are you here to help us? Let me show you the latest pictures. And look at this Loch Ness Monster, how goofy it is. So this is kind of a crossover because Herbie first appeared in Adventures into the Unknown, which was American Comics Group's kind of like mystery title, but it was very like silly, lighthearted mystery comics. Herbie appeared as a backup in there first. So the shtick of the Adventures of the Unknown, the horror hosts, they were basically like up in heaven, which I guess they didn't want to have a religious thing going on, so they called it the unknown. That's the afterlife, basically. So he goes up to the unknown, and we see whatever this guy's name is, the keeper of the unknown, I can't remember. He goes up to get help. He says, well, monsters come from the unknown, that's where I'll go. And we see all these oddball characters. And this guy basically says, sorry, we can't help. So we see this, the Loch Ness Monster. Look at these amazingly drawn demolished tanks. He's just going through the British Army like a samurai sword through cotton candy. And Herbert confronts it. And basically the Loch Ness Monster says, I'm just tired of people not believing in me. And Herbie uses his catchphrase, you want I should bop you with this lollipop? Because he also used his lollipop as weapons. He would hit people with them. And they begin fighting. Look how just crazily goofy and kind of repulsive this creature is. I don't know why, but this almost looks like something Al Columbia would draw if you ignore the faces. Like that body. Of course, Herbie's indestructible. He's omnipotent. So he wallops the Loch Ness Monster all the way up to the unknown. And I guess he's stuck up there now. Queen Elizabeth knights him. The Duke of Popnecker. And of course, she's all in love with him and flirting with him. Herbie doesn't care. He's just got, I just care about lollipops. And of course, when he comes home from saving England, his father says, that little fat nothing of a son of ours is back from his grandfather's. If that boy ever does anything worthwhile, I'll die of shock. So, guys, highest recommendation. Get any Herbie comic you can. They're so good. So now we have a comic. This is the one comic that isn't just one creator. Slim Jim was a comic that had, like, I believe 4 different creators. Apparently the guy who created it, the first one, wasn't that great, according to Dan Adell. But the guy who took over after him, Raymond Crawford Ewer, was. And as you can see, this is beautiful cartooning. I love the way he dressed Slim Jim. He's basically just a stick figure. And just look at this fun, riotous art. Colors are a little weird in this comic, though. It almost looks like they didn't have the full palette that most comic strips had. It's just like blue, the primary colors, it almost seems like it. A few variations, but for the most part. But Slim Jim is basically this criminal. The police force is always trying to get him, and they're always foiled. Slim Jim's always too smart for these bumbling police officers. But look at this beautiful, just graphic design. I mean, each page is a beautiful, like, unit of design. It's just so pleasing to the eye. These are pretty fun. It's because this Slim Jim is this impish character, and the cops are a bunch of oafs. It's almost like a good Warner Brothers cartoon, each one, you know? But I love these panels where it's just like chaos. I mean, kind of clear line style, but then just everything's just going crazy. So now I believe it's this page where we switch over to a new cartoonist named Stanley Armstrong. He's not as good as artist as Ewer, but it's pretty nice. Pretty nice looking. But kind of typical for the Sunday strips of that time. I love this logo and opening panel there. That's really nice. These are very silly. Next we have Bob Powell's Colorama. And I believe we've looked at this comic at least twice in different anthologies. But it's nice to have it here in some really nice color. And I'm not going to get into the plot too much. It's really not about the plot. This is like Bob Powell experimenting with the reproduction of color in comics almost. And basically it's about a guy who has this infirmity, this ailment where colors start just melting in his vision and morphing and turning into monstrous things. This is what happens to a stoplight. Bob Powell did some time with Will Eisner too. Seems like all those guys who studied under, I shouldn't say study, who worked with Eisner, they all really picked up a lot of his great storytelling tricks, He was a police officer, this weird amorphous blob, but then his eyes correct himself. Basically the shtick is he finds this optometrist who has these special glasses which will cure his disease, but he won't sell them to him. He says, they're still not perfected. I can't sell them yet. But this guy's desperate because things are getting worse and worse for him. That's a street light. He's got some groovy art in it, these scenes of, these bizarro scenes. So the guy steals the glasses, and at the last page, the twist is he finds out why they weren't ready. He couldn't sell them to him because there was a defect. And so things go back to normal. He's happy, but then he realizes the colors begin to fade. And pretty soon it just becomes a purplish miasma. And then I love this panel here. Just a black and white, like a negative. And then his vision goes black. I don't know if the editors added this because they thought it was too harsh, the idea that this guy goes blind. But it really takes a lot of the oomph out of the story, where the narrator says, and so you grope through the blackness for days until the effect of the strange glasses finally wears off and you are able to see again. So it's just like, oh, so for a few days he was blind. It's not really nearly as dramatic. But like I said, we've looked at this before, but this is probably the nicest version I have. I love this guy. Never heard of this guy. Walter Querman. Quermann. Hickory Hollow folks. Apparently this comic strip was just in one newspaper for a long time. It was never syndicated. But look how beautiful it is. This art is like some of the best children's book illustration you've ever seen. And it's just about this guy named, I think his name's O-Pum, which is kind of short for opossum. I'll figure it out in a second what is actually how to say his name. Oh, it's O-Hum, sorry. And he's a little possum, and it's about all of his little animal friends in the woods. I just think this art is marvelous. And then for a lot of the strips, there's a secondary strip, Inspector Bones. I love his design as well. So he gets in his humorous little adventures. You know, he's a detective like Sherlock Holmes. And they're cute. But these are very imaginative. Really beautiful stuff. God, look at this one here. Where Ozone, the weather maker, he decides to make every day perfect and sunny. So all the weather, I don't know, like sprites, fairies, they're like, it's like, oh, you're putting us out of work. I can't shoot my hailstones anymore. You're unfair to organized rain clouds. And me, Jack Frost, am I laid off? So he's just all like, go away. Finally, he says, all right, you're back in the payroll. And so for like the next few days, the poor Hickory Hollow is subjected to every kind of weather because the fairies are just like, we can finally do our stuff. Look at this panel. This is amazing. The colors in this are so wonderful too. They're really rich and just nice. Unfortunately, a lot of these have ads for clove chewing gum. You get a little comic strip, I guess, but I don't know who this is. Some probably commercial artist. Look at this great little architecture here. Beautiful stuff. Now we're at the slapstick section. And we start off with Milt Gross, a selection of his various strips. This was one of his first successful strips, Nice Baby, from 1927. Well, other years as well, but that's the selection we're seeing. And just Milt Gross just being zany and funny. The top strip here is the banana oil strip, which every strip would end with someone saying, banana oil, which basically, that was slang that meant, like, bullshit. It's almost like the shut-ups from, what was that, Cracked? Or Sick? I can't remember. Or maybe Mad itself. So these, as you can see, these are all just like, you know, old cartoons. Just some setup for zany madcap antics. And then the antics happen. And Milt Gross with his, like, very kind of quick, rush-looking style. Almost like scribbles. But it makes it funnier. It looks great. And it makes it, they're actually pretty funny. Even though, you know, the jokes aren't like, it's not like smart humor. It's slapstick, Three Stooges humor, but it's pretty funny. There's another banana oil on top here. This is interesting. The end of this strip has a gag where Nice Baby finds himself on this Daredevil ramp. Daredevil Dan's ramp. And this guy goes up to save him. He's the main character in here, this little nebbish looking dude. And he gets hit by Daredevil Dan, and he falls off. And next we see Pete the Pooch in Elwood. This is from 1947, 20 years later. And we'll see the same gag used. He recycled it. This was for Milt Gross Funnies. He was probably one of the first self-published cartoonists. In 1947, he had 2 issues of Milt Gross Funnies that he published, and it was all of his work. And as you can see, he's gotten even looser and zanier. So Pete the Pooch is, you know, once again, it's just lots of antics. Pete the Pooch is always getting his owner into trouble. The owner takes his date to the carnival, but Pete comes along, and the date is not happy with it because he keeps fucking shit up. Look at this art. It just makes me laugh looking at it. It's just funny looking. Almost every panel is some bit of kookiness. Sorry about that loud water bottle. Man, I would love to have these two comics. So here we see Daredevil Dan. He didn't even change his name. And this time it's the dog instead of Nice Baby. And this time it's a different protagonist who's got to follow him, save him, and once again he gets hit. Some of these things don't even make sense. Like Pete the Pooch is watching one of those little Nickelodeon type movie things. And it's a hoochie coochie girl. And he's so crazed for her and love. He somehow crawls inside this Nickelodeon through the viewer. So when his owner, he gets distracted by, he sees that machine, the ooh la la. La Zaza. And when he looks in, the movie is of Pete dancing around. So Pete escapes from the machine. And he's cast out into his doghouse. Oh, I just realized that guy wasn't Pete the Pooch's owner. It's his owner's father. His father and mother showed up at the carnival too. I guess it doesn't really matter. Next we have Stan McGovern. And he had a comic strip named Silly Millie that ran in the mid-40s. And look at this art. It doesn't look like it's from the 40s to me. Maybe because it's so like weird and almost ugly. But this main character, look at her legs. They're just like trunks. And her face, I don't know. She doesn't look human. And even the lettering, this looks like a comic strip no earlier than the 70s to me. So it's not a very, experimental strip or anything. It is pretty much just daily gags. But it's just the art style itself makes it stand out. They're pretty funny, especially for the time. It does, even the sense of humor seems a little more modern. Another interesting thing about Silly Millie, Stan McGovern would always throw in like real things that were going on in the world, and that would be the springboard for his gag for that day. Like he says, "Oh, this ad! I just saw this ad recently. The icebox of tomorrow. The whole." I guess even back then, people were saying how smart it would be to have a see-through refrigerator so you wouldn't have to open the door all the time. So it's like, what is this going to lead to? The maid of tomorrow? This woman has a see-through chest so you can see her heart and liver? Or the bathroom of tomorrow where people could look in and see you while you're in a bathtub? Just goofy things like that. Here's a little pre-family circus Jeffy type strip where we see this kid on a convoluted journey. He also does things like he talks to the reader. He breaks the fourth wall. In fact, this whole strip is how he gives us a trade secret. He says the wonderful thing about not doing a continuity strip is if he ever gets sick, he can pull out an old strip and reprint it. And all he has to do is write reprinted by popular demand on it, even though there was no demand at all. It was just, he was sick. Look at this strip. It's just all like little what to do if you're bored. Little magic tricks you can teach yourself. It really seems like this guy was just like doing whatever the hell he wanted. Next we have Dick Briefer, who drew the Frankenstein comic strip in the 40s. And this is kind of a strange history. Just look at this art though. It's insane. This is like milk gross loose. And odd. But so Frankenstein started as a serious horror strip, and then somehow Dick Briefer just totally turned it into this zany, goofy strip where Frankenstein's this lovable moron, and all of his monster friends hang out, and it's a total comedy. So we see his ghoul and vampire friends are all sitting around his house chatting, waiting for Frankenstein to get home. I guess it's a surprise party. And then this guy shows up. Stanley the Sorcerer. Nobody likes him. They're like, what are you doing here? God, all these characters look so funny. This is some great fun. Really daffy cartooning. So he turns all of Frankenstein's friends into cookies. And then when Frankenstein comes home, he says that, oh, I baked this cake for you, and I'm throwing this party for you. And look, I even made cookies of all your best friends. And he wants Frankenstein to eat them. He wants him to eat his friends. But luckily, he does. Then he blows the candle and makes a wish. And his wish is, I wish all my friends could be there. So the sorcerer ate some of the cookies too, so he's like, oh shit. And so, Frankenstein didn't eat the cookies, so everyone pops up. But he ate one of the cookies, and it's that weird dog character with a human head. It comes out of his mouth. I like this parody of contemporary magazines, all with Frankenstein on them. And so here we have a kind of different story. Man, this art is so bizarre. I really like it, though. In this one, Frankenstein becomes a model, and he keeps going to the wrong set because they wanted him to be for a certain kind of commercial. But he keeps going to the wrong set, so it's like, oh yeah, I guess you're the hula girl for our new ad. Look at him in a wedding dress here for that kind of ad. But finally, he gets to the right studio, and I guess it's all for a cereal or something. And the gag is that they only used his finger. Like, they've got this incredible monster, but you wouldn't even know it from the ad. And that's the goofy gag at the end. So now we have Jack Mendelsohn showing off. They're showing off some of his comics from Jackie's Diary. This is from 1960. Jackie's Diary was a comic strip in the newspaper, but Jack Mendelsohn did a one-shot Dell 4-color comic, all of Jackie's Diary comics, and I believe they were new. They were drawn for that issue. I showed it off maybe 4 months ago. If you guys want to see more of Jackie's Diary, it's really fun stuff. The whole shtick is that it's written and drawn by a child, like a 8-year-old. So as you can see, it looks like it's drawn by a little kid. But it's very appealing, though. It is this incredibly... He captures that style of how a little kid would draw. But I gotta say, it's fun to read these, and the art looks good to me in a weird way. Maybe it's almost like Matt Feazell with what a cynical man. It's just stick figures, but they're well-drawn stick figures. And a lot of the humor of this comes from the writing, from the malapropisms that kids say. They don't quite know what words means. You know, like cute things like, here's the line. The reasons lions roar so much is on account of they feed them raw meat. Like, he doesn't know the difference between roar and raw. He thinks the tightrope walker is on a clothesline. And he's like, yeah, he must have been really poor because he had to wear his underwear. Because he's wearing, his tights. They're really cute, really funny, like genuinely charming. This could be in the hands of a lesser humorist, really just kind of, gross. Like Family Circus or something. But I highly recommend these. These are great. So, I'm kind of flipping through this because these were all in that video. We just looked at these. But camping out of doors, about him being a Cub Scout. Love the colors in here, too. Like, look how, I guess, technically crappy this art is, but I like looking at it. It's weird how appealing it is. Now we have acts of drawing. I'm not really sure what that means, but suffice to say, it's more interesting, crazy, weird shit. Let's see what he says. This is free, completely cartoon drawing, with no care for realism or anything else save the pure act of cartoon making. So that's what links these artists. Even though, to be honest, I don't see much of a difference between this and artists in other sections. It just looks like typical old gag strip stuff. So here's Charles M. Payne, and his big comic strip is called Say Pop. And this is a lot of, cute domestic humor of this father with his children and their friends, and he's always getting involved in their misadventures. It's pretty nice, the art here. So these strips are from 1918. But all the plots are, kind of typical. I mean, if you've read a smattering of old comic strips, the funny ones, you've read all of these before, in a way. Just zany antics and slapstick and physical humor. But yeah, what a nice, very nice, appealing style. Now we have Fletcher Hanks with his Stardust character, Stardust the Super Wizard. And Fletcher Hanks in the past, 15, 20 years has finally gotten some acclaim. He was kind of a forgotten artist. He only worked in the comic industry for 3 years, I think, maybe 2. But man, his stuff really is just, it's truly the work of a disturbed individual. There's no way that this guy was normal. And from what I've read, he was a really nasty, bad alcoholic. He ended up dying on a park bench, decades later when he was an old man. Estranged from his family, he was abusive. So I don't know. It's almost like this is an act. His weird plots and dialogue. I think he genuinely was a freak. He's not very bright either. Because I think even a school child, even back in 1940, would know that you couldn't live on a star. So Stardust actually, he has his own star that he lives on with an observatory. So I guess there's this horrible aliens, the super fiend of the lost planet. He has an evil plan to ignite Mars with this super bomb. He puts it in a crater. I love this mask he puts on. There's something so just, I don't know, primal about this drawing. This could be some ancient drawing I found in a cave or something. It's just, this is pretty, he was a true primitive. So he ignites Mars, and I guess, this is the future, so Mars is colonized. So he kills millions of people, burns them to a crisp. And then he kind of, with this beam, he throws Mars at Earth. So the whole thing is, it's why didn't you just blow up Earth? I guess he wanted to kill 2 planets, but he could have just used 2 bombs and bombed Mars and lit it on fire, and then Earth. But he has this elaborate plan. Now Mars is going to be thrown towards Earth. Stardust, of course, is going to come to stop this. On planet Earth, people see this thing in the sky, and they're like, oh my God. Stardust suddenly begins releasing his powerful retarding rays. And I guess he deflects the fiery planet from Earth. And then he shows up, grabs the fiend. So many things in this don't make any sense. He grabs the fiend and basically pulls him to the dead planet of Mars with all these just dead bodies and skeletons, all charred to ash, or almost to ash. And then he says, basically, I'm going to give you a fighting chance, because basically I'm going to kick your ass. And he makes him bigger. So it's just okay. The main thing is you want to punish this guy, But now you want to have a little fair fight with him. Look at the weird lines in his crotch here. Fletcher Hank is really odd. So Stardust beats the shit out of him. And his punishment is just, you have to stay on this planet. The lifeless ruins of a planet you set on fire. He says, farewell, Super Fiend, and zaps away. And the Super Fiend just says, no, don't leave me here. Oh, that stuff's insane. Fantagraphics had 2 books of Fletcher Hank stuff. Highly recommended. They're all nuts, but in a fascinating way. I don't know if they're still in print, but they're wonderful. Next, we have Garrett Price. He was like a kind of a fancy cartoonist. He did comics for the New Yorker. He was like a higher echelon, hot shit cartoonist. But I guess there was enough money in syndicated cartoons that he was lured into this field. And he came up with a strip, ostensibly a Western strip called White Boy. And White Boy is about this kid who's kidnapped and adopted by the Sioux Indians. And so there's already been many White Boys before this. We're in medias res here. So apparently there's this beautiful Sioux woman that he's friends with. And a lot of it just tells you, like, lore of the Native Americans. Like how they packed up when they were traveling, Look at this wonderful panel here. I love just the composition of this. But the artist, for the most part, is very, just light. If that's a good adjective for it. It's just very, not necessarily loose, but just, not a lot of detail at all. And almost like how you'd imagine a New Yorker cartoonist would draw an adventure strip. The colors are wonderful in this. Really beautiful. So it's like one of those, it's almost like Tintin. He's a good kid. He's always helping people, always getting into adventures. And surprisingly for its day, because these strips are from 34. I don't think it lasted long, so probably most of the strips were the mid-30s. It's a very sensitive portrayal of Native Americans compared to what other things were doing at the time. Most of the cowboy movies and fiction were just like, the Indians are, savages who want to kill the white man all the time. They're just crazy. But this is just like, no, they're a people, with their own customs and stuff. And it really kind of explains that stuff. Like, look how cartoony and goofy some of these panels are. And there's humor in it, but mostly it's, they're serious stories. He's got a comic relief friend named Woodchuck, this chubby Sioux Indian. I like this totem pole here. Yeah, this stuff is really pretty. Yeah, his Sue, well, I don't know if she's his girlfriend, but whatever. Her name's Starlight. Almost, sometimes she looks like a Paul Pope drawn character to me. Maybe because she's just very young and skinny and beautiful. I love some of these nice design work. See, look how comically he's drawn. That's like a total Bigfoot drawing style. But then he meets this guy. That is amazing. Look at these totem poles here, the design of those. I gotta get a collection of these. This is the only white boy I've ever seen. Look at this here. Woodchuck's captured by this other tribe, and they put him in this tent with masks. Look at these crazy masks. It says Picasso design mess. Really fun to read these. The plotting is great, and I really got sucked into the, kind of, it's a very simple plot, but I really got sucked in. Look, interesting panels like this here, just the silhouette, just one color here. That looks so good. This guy, that's great. Oh, that's Woodchuck, of course, but he's wearing one of those masks. So now we have A.E. Hayward, and his comic strip was called Somebody's Stenog, and it ran in the 20s. Now, this comic really looks modern to me. Look at this art style. This totally reminds me of, like, M.K. Brown meets Mimi Pond. And the humor does seem like this could have been a National Lampoon strip in the 70s. Look how the way they draw this, he draws this guy. Something about the fact that this art isn't that, what's the word? It's just not as, I guess, technically good as some of the classic artists like Cliff Starrett or, Milt Caniff. But it makes it even seem more modern. And it really works. It's not like, I don't think this artist is bad. It's just A.E. Hayward has a very weird style. God, that's crazy to me. These are, once again, typical gag strips. Everyone's very, trying to be funny. But man, look at this. I love this, just this montage here of her. I think her name's Cam. This is Cam just daydreaming about where she wants to take her vacation. This one is bizarre to me. Look at this. There's a parade, and I guess these are the floats. But this looks like just weird underground art to me, like Justin Green and Frank Stack or something. Look at that design there. Here she has a dream where the stack of dishes in the sink just grow and grow, and she's like almost drowning in them. So next we have Jefferson McHamer. And this guy I've never seen before. Very interesting art style. These are from the 30s. And he had this thing called Gags and Gals, where these are just each independent little gag panels, and then it'd have a strip running along the bottom. Look at this art style. It's like the scratchy, like he's just slashing with his pen. And he was known for drawing statuesque, almost Amazonian beautiful women. But look, this looks so European to me. This looks like so many artists later on in heavy metal you'd see, French, Italian artists. This doesn't look like anything from like American comic strips that I've ever seen. This art style. I'm trying to find if there's a good gag, but they're all kind of like, gags making fun of how guys don't like their wives, and that are totally kind of 30s, 40s humor. God, look at that. This guy's really good. I love his style. I'd almost be fascinated to see him. I'd be fascinated to see him do like a narrative strip. Not just some gag cartoons. This one's really interesting. The bottom strip here. This guy says, how am I going to get rid of this girl? And he basically says, I got to let you go. I got to get change in this strip. So she says, okay, I'll climb out of this silly cellar. Give me a stepladder while I change into a wedding gown. And when she gets up on her stepladder, she climbs into this gag panel that we just read. That really surprised me. I was just like, oh, shit, that's a really cool, like, fourth wall breaking thing. A lot of these strips are really fun because they talk about recent fads and stuff, and some of them are inexplicable. You're like, that was a thing in 1937, I guess. Wow, this guy's amazing. Love this art. I'm trying to find one gag worth telling you. I guess I could just tell you one that's a typical example of the kind of humor in this. I guess this is like the typical kind of stuff. This is the stuff you'd see in those little cartoon gag books for men only. Boo-hoo, today was our first wedding anniversary and you forgot. And this guy has been carousing all night. He says, nope, I've been celebrating, haven't I? That's not very funny. And then we have definitely the most modern artist in here, Rory Hayes, the great underground cartoonist. This is from Boogeyman Comics #1 and The Creature in the Tunnels. And we see Rory Hayes' crazy mixture of almost like cute storybook characters, like these teddy bears, with the most horrifying hallucinogenic images. And as you can see, it's very crude and primitive, which makes it even more just seem nightmarish. He gets on this train. He gets ejected from the train. And then there's these zombies chasing him. Look at these horrifying. They look like they were drawn by a 13-year-old on his notebook in class. But it makes them even more scary than like a well-drawn zombie from The Walking Dead or something. So they're chasing after this little teddy bear. And he's captured. And the comic just ends with everything going black and him going, aye. It's very odd. Rory Hayes was a really interesting character. He was a very almost like a childlike spirit. And then, he was in the heyday of the San Francisco hippie underground comics movement era. And all the other cartoonists thought he was great. They loved the fact that he was this primitive weirdo who didn't draw like anyone else. But later on, he started experimenting with drugs and really got into LSD. So this is his almost LSD comic. Look at this, putting in a lot of detail. So he's definitely learning his craft. He's definitely getting slicker, but he's still weird as hell. Still nobody draws like this. So we see the bear. He's traveling to this other planet. He leaves his spacecraft. He finds this weird city. He finds this weird building filled with strange odors. And he sees this mutant just scrawling on the floor. We tried. Then this huge monster pops up through the ground. Look at this kind of Rory Hayes psychedelia. It's just nightmarish. The skull says, hop on. Step on here and escape. So he does. And then, obviously, that's the Boogeyman, by the way. He's the narrator of these comics. And it looks like he just ate the teddy bear. And he laughs. The end. Next, we have another section, Words in Pictures. This is the ones that he claimed are their greatest attribute is the writing over the art. I kind of disagree on some of these where some of the worst comics in the book I think are in here. In fact, this is my least favorite. I had to trudge through this. It could have been because the words are so damn tiny, but it was beyond that. Harry Hirschfeld, he was quite the personality. I think he became a radio star later on in life. But he had this comic, Dauntless Durham, and these are from 1913. And it was like a parody of dime novels or serials, movie serials, where, typical thing. There was Dauntless Durham was this steadfast, all-American youth. And there was this evil guy named, I believe his name is Desmond. And then there's Katrina, Durham's girlfriend, who Desmond is always trying to steal away or endanger, depending on his mood. And he's always trying to fuck with Thoughtless Durham. He's just a mustache twirling typical villain, like Oil Can Harry or something like that. They'll do weird things, though. In the middle of these story strips, they'll just have a little fashion show. And they'll be like, hey, guys, let's try on these fashions. And all the characters will show off these various fashions. There's many different asides like that, not necessarily fashion shows, but he'll be telling these long, stories that run for weeks and weeks. These are dailies, by the way. And he'll just go off on a little tangent. So we start off these are some more random strips we start off with, but we'll eventually get into a long-form story soon. He was parodying, Greek sculpture. He actually put a photo in here. I guess this is one of the interesting things of the day. This picture, I guess, was a famous, basically, porno. This photo postcard was, I considered very salacious. It was very popular, and yet it was banned in a lot of places. So it becomes a plot element where Desmond tries to get Durham in trouble by claiming that he had one of these. Because I think the Postal Service, it was against the law to mail these because it was, obscene material or something. There's actually a name for it. September Morn, it's called. Almost looks like a Maxfield Parrish painting, but it's a photo. Then they spend a few days, I guess there was a popular joking fad where you would say, I should worry, and then make a bad pun. I should worry like a frog and be a hop fiend. I should worry like a horse, nay, nay. I should worry like a whale and blubber. It's just baffling that was popular. So there's 3, I believe, strips of just those. Maybe more, actually. Maybe a whole week. But then eventually we start a story. After these kind of more singular strips. Here's another fashion show one. Katrina's trying on all these bathing suits. Look at this elaborate panel here. Okay, guys, we'll eventually get to it. Another fashion show. So I guess there is this whole other story before we get to the main story. So Desmond makes a bet with Durham. He says, I bet you can't go around the world in 30 days. If you lose, I get Katrina. And basically, I just get to show you up. So that's what the next, God, way too many strips to my liking. This was a trudge last night. I was like, oh my God, there's another page of all this tiny script. And, because these are really tiny. This is more than a page of comic reading. This is about the equivalent of 4. Each one is almost like a comics page as far as length. But we get a whole tour of the world. And that's what the next few weeks are going to show us. Him and Katrina. And the whole time, Desmond is trying to chase them. See how weird strips like this? He'll just have little facts and stuff. What Durham's taking with him. He almost pretends that this is real. And Harry Hirschfeld, the cartoonist, is actually following him around, reporting on this amazing journey. Here's another one. Little facts about Japan. This one's really interesting because this one, Katrina draws the strip. And Katrina does a little essay about, how women live in Japan from the women's point of view. And she says, she tells Durham, I used to draw in college. I could actually make illustrations for this article. So that's what we're seeing here. And look at this amazing style. I think she's trying to draw like a Japanese art style, but it looks much different. I guess it ends up looking like Art Nouveau, which was very inspired by Japanese art. But this is outstanding. It's so sad that this was just a weird thing for him. This is how Katrina would draw, I imagine. I'll do this as a goof. But man, This looks so modern to me. This looks like it could be in like heavy metal in the 70s or something. Be like Guido Crepax. Actually, it's better than Guido Crepax. I think that's why Dan Nadels claims at the end there's some essays, and he likes the strip so much for all those little asides. It's just like this Harry Hirschfeld guy was just having a good time. Sometimes I get bored with the story and just be like, okay, now let's do something else. So he wins the bet. He wins $10,000. That was the bet. And Desmond decides to give it to him in pennies, which of course is a big hassle. But then he makes another bet with them and says, I bet you can't spend this $10,000 in pennies in I think a week or a month. So now this is another bet. Of course, it's very hard to spend that many pennies, and Desmond keeps trying to screw him up. So I thought I was done. I was like, the trip 30 days around the world. Now let's move on to another comic. Nope. Now I have a whole other storyline where he's trying to get rid of these pennies. When I saw this, I was so happy. These aren't that bad, I don't think. They're not great, though. I don't really, compared to so many other things in this book, they're not that visionary to me. Here's another one that Katrina draws. This one's in a different style, though. This is very loose, but it looks great. Look at this one where it's almost like he's doing like gray tone. It almost looks like painted art in black and white. So, I mean, that is admirable. He does all these weird, interesting things. But, yeah, the art's just kind of just so normal to me. And the story was just kind of like, it's not that funny. So here's a comic called Elmo. This is from Elmo #1, a comic collecting the comic strip Elmo. It was by a guy named Cecil Jensen. And once again, never heard of this guy. Great cartoonist. Look at these caricatured faces. They all look so good. Where's this? I love this, the way he draws this old guy. So the shtick is Elmo he's kind of like Little Abner, Joe Palooka. He's just a sweetheart, but dumb as a rock. But he always manages to bumble his way to victory. Somehow somebody gave him a controlling interest or whatever, half the stock in the cereal company. And the manager of the company, the general manager, they call him the Commodore. He wants to get rid of Elmo. He hates Elmo. He even has a book made called 1,001 Ways to Get Rid of Elmo. He also has this kind of evil assistant named Sultry, who's very dragon lady-esque, very sexy, but pretty mean. And Elmo we see here with his girl. She works there too. So we see all these various plots of the Commodore trying to get rid of Elmo. Trying to frame him for embezzling and all these other things. But of course there's lots of goofy asides. You know, it's all about the yucks. So as you can imagine, this is from a comic book. So these are all reformatted from daily strips. So these were all strips at one point, probably 4 panels, and they just mushed it into a comic book. So that's why the layout is so kind of stagnant. It's just 12 panel grids the whole time. Look at that guy. I like that face. So then there's this whole plot about this secret perfume that's based on the Cleopatra's recipe that makes people irresistible. But really, it's just all about how many jokes can he squeeze into every strip. Once again, it's not really, this guy's art isn't like going to make you go, whoa, look at this guy. But it's just so nice and competent, you know, it's nice. Oh, now we have the great Booty Rogers. Probably up there with, Basil Wolverton and the Herby guys and Fletcher Hanks. One of the weirdest comic artists. This stuff is just nuts. It's so funny and zany and so surreal. So Sparky Watts is kind of a superhero, but, he's not. He doesn't have a costume, and it's all funny stuff. But I guess he was hit by cosmic rays. If he doesn't get a daily or weekly dose, he starts shrinking. He lives with this scientist. I'll get his name in a second. I can't remember right now. But he also lives with Slap Happy, this big moronic goon. And the doctor says, I don't know if I can give you a cosmic ray so soon. Look what happened with Fiddlesticks. And Fiddlesticks has these giant feet. I don't know why. I thought that was so funny. So I guess Slap Happy, the dumb guy, he gets a package in the mail. He gets in this really humorous exchange with the mailman. Just like they're insulting each other, about to have a fight. I thought it was pretty funny. And it's a monkey. And so the monkey breaks the ray machine, the cosmic ray machine. So Sparky starts shrinking. He's like, oh no, this is what I didn't want. They put him, the professor puts him in this bowl so he can't, disappear, so they'll know where he is. And we realize Sparkplug is really fucking stupid. He's like, oh, he might want some coffee. I'll pour some hot coffee in there. He could probably slurp it up, even though he's tiny. But then the monkey puts the bowl on his head. So Booty ends up on his scalp. Look at this horrifying image of the monkey scratching at his head because he thinks he has fleas. And so does Slap Happy. So Slap Happy douses him with DDT. And of course, Sparky gets the full brunt of it. And he shakes him out in the lawn. And then he shakes him onto this newspaper here. And then burns the newspaper to be on the safe side. So he's almost murdered Sparky like 3 different times. He escapes the fire, luckily. And it continues in this next chapter, The Kingdom of the Talking Bugs. This is exactly what he feared. He said, last time I was tiny, all these bugs were terrorizing me. This is what he did not want. So these two, I guess they're bugs, even though they don't look like any bugs I've ever seen. But man, look how crazy these designs are. They find him. They say, we'll take you to our queen. She kind of looks at you. Look at these great bug designs, how just zany and daffy these guys are. I love this kind of stuff. Here's the queen. She has 2 heads. And they're fighting over him. And they fight all the time, these 2 queens. They're like, I'm going to marry him. No, I am. And so they put the screen. They're behind the screen. When it's pulled away, this is their body. I love this guy here. Look at that crazy weapon or whatever the hell that is. So she says, okay, so we don't fight. We're going to bisect you. And then we can each marry half of you. And we won't have to fight over it. So that becomes a big zany thing. They're going to pull them apart. But he says, I'll marry them as is. Just don't pull me apart. This crazy guy. So he agrees to marry them. But right then, luckily, Sparky starts to grow again. Because the professor fixed the cosmic ray machine. And it ends with a dumb gag. But man, what a crazy, imaginative, fun ride that was. Pootie Rogers, all of his comics are like that. This next guy is Harry J. Tuthill. He had a popular comic strip called The Bungle Family for a long time. And this is another one of those comics I find quite unremarkable. It's like a lot of those goofy strips, from back then. These are from the early 30s. And every New Year, he would do a strip like this. Kind of like playing around with the graphics. So it would read 1933. I guess this came out January 1st. But it's really, when you look at each panel, it's not that clever. Because it's like so obvious what he's doing. It's just, these ducks that he's hunting are just spelling out 1933 throughout all his panels. Like, some of them don't even really fit in the panel. Like, ducks wouldn't be doing that. This also is just, I find just very, it's okay art, I guess. Just for that kind of goofy domestic funny strip. Dan Nato claims that the writing in these is just so brilliant and acerbic. The way the husband and wife talk to each other. He's very impressed by their realistic, colloquial dialogue. And, but I don't know, it didn't really faze me much. Didn't make me that happy. They were okay, though, I guess. None of them made me even close to laugh, though. The humor in these it's such a different humor back then. Where some of them I don't even get. I'm just like, oh, this guy's getting hit in the head by the sign over and over. That's not funny to me. I forgot to mention that there's a Little Brother strip, which is, obviously like kind of kid humor that runs along the top of all of these. And they're just little gags, It did seem interesting, like, especially that time, just how, like, kind of, actually venal Mr. Bungle was. Like, he is, almost like Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, where it's just like, oh, man, dude, shut up. Here's another one of those Happy New Year strips. And this one is just, for some reason, he's shooting out letters onto a fence. I don't think anyone does that. That's not a thing. But he's spelling out Happy New Year. I guess we use... Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's a new comic strip. Now we're Hairbreadth Harry. And this is by C.W. Cowles. This is very similar to that Dauntless Durham strip. Same kind of genesis. Hairbreadth Harry, kind of like making fun of dime novels. There's a villain in it. I can't remember his name right now. And I think this is the villain here. And... I like this strip where he's hitting on all these women in the park. And then he hits on this one woman with very big hands. Turns out it's an undercover cop. It's Harry. Harry's a cop. And so I guess he's been, there's been reports of some man bugging women in the park. Some of these gags are so odd that they're more enjoyable to me. That's some really good illustration. I love these faces. I do like this art too. It's some really nice cartooning. So I'm not getting into all these guys. I mean, I can't say you've seen them all before, though, because some of them are quite weird. I mean, they have fantasy in them. In this one, Hairbreadth Harry jumps into the Fountain of Youth and turns into a little boy. So the villain gets to spank him. He's like, oh, I've been waiting to do this for years. So this one continues. Harry's still a little kid, and I guess he eats this food. He eats so much of it that he grows. It makes him grow fast. I like how there's this witch who's trying to put him in a stew. So this isn't your typical oil can Harry type store. They have, like, here we have a dinosaur. The villain here is finds a dinosaur egg and incubates it. And it becomes full size very quickly. And of course, hijinks ensue. Dinosaurs running around. Kind of silly, weird looking dinosaur. Yes, that's very nice to me. Not reinventing the wheel or anything, but just very solid cartoony craftsmanship. Next we have form and style. Let's see what he says here. These artists, their styles and devices were utilized in order to serve the content of the strip. There's no game playing for its own sake here, but rather inventive, idiosyncratic graphic storytelling. This one is another one of those revelations. I just can't believe how pretty these strips are, and like They don't really look like of their time, which is 1913. There's a guy named Charles Forbell, and the strip is called Naughty Pete. It's about a rambunctious little kid, the original Dennis the Menace. So every strip is just him causing some horrible trouble. And this kid's a fucking terror. I mean, he's terrible. Like, if I was his parents, I'd be tempted to punish them physically. They're that terrible. He's a bad seed. He's just really almost psychotic, this child. But I love this, like, it's very gentle, very kind of loose art. And there's something about this with, like, the script font within the panel without a balloon around it. It reminds me of some of Chris Ware's stuff a lot. Not the art style or anything, but just it's got a different tone to it. Really interesting colors, too, color choices. And he's definitely playing around with the storytelling. You know, sometimes long horizontal panels. And then there's strips like we won't even have panels, like here. His logos are all great. The way he incorporates the logo into the strip. This really reminds me of Chris Ware here. This one's beautiful to me. I love the color of this, the background color. And so instead of panel borders, I guess it's just a little patch of ground that he's standing on with this calf. Of course, he's being a dick to the calf and being a jerk. And the end of every one, the tagline is, or the punchline is, I guess Paul was right. Because his pa seems pretty gentle. He's always just like, hey, you shouldn't do that, Pete. You know, like, he doesn't say, like, cut that shit out. He's just always just like, you shouldn't do that. So at the end of every strip, he learns his lesson and says, I guess Pop was right. Look at that. And that's beautiful, the way the logo is just behind these floating patches of ground. Once again, look at this. Circular panels. Once again, great calligraphy for the logo. This one is really nice. It's almost painterly, the way the colors he gets out of this. God, this one, he's totally torturing this poor duck. And luckily the duck gives him a good dousing at the end. God, what a jerk this kid is. Very interesting looking to me. This is another artist that, you know, obviously looked at the whole page as a unit. You know, it wasn't about just like, oh, this panel, then this panel. He's looking at as each page is a beautiful piece of design. And look at this, the way the colors alternate. So if you just kind of like step back, this is just pleasing to the eye. It's just very nice looking. This is really great here. It plays around with some storytelling. It's him sliding down a banister. So, and the panels go this way. He numbers them so it's easy to tell. And then down the banister. So the whole page layout is based around the action of a diagonal staircase. Yeah, never heard of this guy, never seen him. I might have seen him. Maybe he's in that Smithsonian book by Bill Blackbeard, and I forgot. But this stuff is really nice. Vertical panels because he's on stilts. Look at those rich colors here, these rich oranges. I like the way the logo is incorporated there. Once again, it's all like the colors, alternating colors for no, like if you're reading the comic, you're like, why is that red? Why is that blue? Why is that yellow? It doesn't really matter. But then when you pull back, it's just like, oh, it makes this almost Mondrian-like page design, like the Partridge Family bus. And here's the last one, unfortunately. I think this is another comic where these are like the only ones that exist. I think Naughty Pete was another weird comic that was like in one paper. It wasn't really syndicated. And they didn't, he didn't make many of them. Once again, the color is beautiful. Now we have T.E. Powers. T. Powers did everything in newspapers. He was like a political cartoonist, editorial cartoonist. But for a while he did this strip. And it's kind of like, I don't even know if they have names, but the idea of these strips is that there's glooms, glooms and joys. So this one's an atypical strip because this shows all the joys just congregating, and we see the poor glooms are stuck in their offices having to work, but all the joys get to go to the polo grounds and watch a horse race. But the idea of the strip is it's kind of typical old-timey gag stuff. Like this one's 1911. I think these are all like early, around 1911. And when something good happens, all of a sudden joys start popping up at everyone's feet. Because that's the feeling. Like joy, the feeling of joy. But then when the plan goes awry, gloom shows up and all the joys have to beat it. And in this case, it's actually a human. But usually they're little imps too. So what Dan Adele says, this is the first comic that actually commented on the action. The art within each panel, there's a commentary on the action by these little characters. So here we have a guy, he's waiting for his wife. She's late to dinner. He's not looking forward to it. It's that typical old gag, like, oh, my wife. Ugh. I gotta hang out with her. So there's all these little glooms. But then he sees these women and starts flirting with them, these cute young ladies. And the joys come and beat off the glooms with sticks. And now the joys actually turn to delight. But then the wife shows up. And the joys take off hastily and the glooms just totally start marching around the table like a parade. Kind of a weird, interesting concept for a comic. So it just keeps repeating itself, like when bad things happen, the glooms are all around and vice versa. His art is pretty sparse. It's pretty remedial. Though I do like the way he draws this hobo. His jacket and the folds and stuff. Here's kind of a sad one where this is another atypical one where we see inside of a store window. It looks like it's Christmas maybe. And obviously there's all these toys there, but all we see is joy, 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 joy. And this poor little girl who can't afford toys, but she's holding a gloom doll. So using them in a slightly different way. But you totally get it. It's like, this is joyful, but not for her. She just has gloom. You guys have probably seen these before. These are so amazing. The Upside Downs of Little Lady Lovekins and Old Man Muffaroo by Gustav Verbeek. This guy was an immigrant to America. I think he was a young kid when he came here. And he was Dutch. And this comic is so amazing because there's these two characters. They get in little adventures. When you get to the sixth panel here, you flip the strip, and it continues because he ingeniously drew every character in every panel so it could be upside down and make a different kind of sense. So if you notice, which you probably will very quickly, Little Lady Lovekins and Old Man Muffaroo are just drawn the same except one's upside down, but it kind of works. So Old Man Muffaroo's hat turns into her dress. It doesn't quite work. Like, he couldn't figure out a way to make Old Man Muffaroo's pants, his legs. So she has this ridiculous hat that looks like pant legs floating above her. But these are so clever. I can't believe this guy had to come up with this every week. Just one panel seems like it would take you weeks just to figure out, okay, I got to do it again. It doesn't work upside down. So each one is like this. They're very simple, like almost children's tales, but they are kind of a little scary and nightmarish. Like, look at this monster that picks up Old Man Muffaroo. I'm not going to flip the book around for everyone, guys, sorry. Because you get the idea. But as you can see, the colors are really beautiful. Look at the sky, this sunset. It's gorgeous. This is 1904. So this is like right around when Little Nemo was starting. I think that started in 1903. I'll give you guys a good look at all these. Yeah, I think it would be a lot to ask for these stories to be like interesting and complex, because it's a hard enough thing just to make the art logistics work out. But they're fun little adventures, you know. They're like weird little adventures. Then he had another strip called The Terrors of the Tiny Tads. These are really fun. These aren't upside down or anything, but it's about these kids, and they're always like traveling in these like scary woods, and they meet all these weird monsters. They ride around in a hippopotamobile, and all the monsters they meet have goofy punny names, like the Flamingost, the Caraboogaboo. Let's see some other ones. The Bumble Beaver. He's this bee-beaver hybrid. They also meet these girls called the Sweet Sugirls. Wait, I think it's supposed to be a pun on sugar. Sugirls. I guess it's not that good if I have to think about it that long. But each one is like that. Some are in black and white, some are in color, some are in monocolor. And these are pretty entertaining, some of these puns are really good. We have this, he goes to one of the tiny tads, goes to this one forest where plants can walk and flowers can walk. He sees a great big buffalotus, an Oriolander bird, and a wisteria. But these designs are really good. And once again, I love his art. The way he draws like the grass and the trees with all the lines, it's really nice. A sombrero plane? I would even get that pun. Oh, is that it? Oh, I wish there was more. So now we have Terrible Thompson by Kim Deitch's dad, Gene Deitch. Jim Deitch was an animator for years, a very prominent animator, and he always had the dream to make a comic strip, though, because he grew up reading them. So he made this strip, Terrible Thompson, and as you can see, it looks like one of those UPA cartoons from the 50s where he worked. That kind of modern cartooning style that took over cartoons in the 50s, mid to late 50s. And basically, Terrible Thompson's just this like kid he's almost like Herby, where everyone in history knows him, and they don't talk about the intricacies of time travel or anything, but they just approach him and say, "You got to help us." So Christopher Columbus, I guess there's a mutiny on the Santa Maria, and he needs Terrible Thompson's help. So there's a Sunday page, but then the story continues in the dailies. And here we see, I like it even more in black and white, even though his colors are really nice in the strips, but you can really see that just ultra stylized cartooning going on. So these are from 55. So it's this crazy story. These aren't that funny, to be honest. His sense of humor really, I think it skipped a generation to his son, Kim. But these colors are very rich. I mean, this is 55. I guess the printing maybe got better. Or I should say, the old comic strips hadn't faded, had enough decades to fade. That's probably what it is. Because those old comic strips were printed really beautifully. So there's this villainous guy in here, Mean Morgan. So once again, there's this guy who constantly follows around Terrible Thompson and tries to foil his good plans. He's a real no-good Nick. But really bold colors. These were kind of fun, though. But yeah, not my cup of tea. I think I even owned this book for a while. I had the collection. I think I got rid of it. Because I was like, yeah, it looks really... I like this cartooning, but it just didn't really speak to me that much. So we get done with the Christopher Columbus adventure, and then they start the beginning of another one, but Dan Adel cuts it off. So now we have George Carlson, who was kind of made famous in that All in Color for a Dime book in the late 60s, the book of essays about comic strips. Harlan Ellison, his article simply just described panel by panel one of George Carlson's Jingle Jangle tales, which are like modern fractured fairy tales. They read like fairy tales, but they're way weirder and surreal. And interest grew because of that, even though you still couldn't find them. The Smithsonian book had some. But it's nice to see a whole story. And I still, as far as I know, don't think these have ever been collected in a book, even though everyone speaks so highly of them. As you can see, he has a very like children's book style, especially from that time. You know, this is from 43, but he was drawing children's books in like the 20s. He was already like a middle-aged man by the time, you know, comic books burst on the scene. I'm just going to read some of this to give you a flavor. The title is The Youthful Yodeler and the Zigzag Zither. Once upon a time, there was a youthful yodeler who lived on a newly painted mountain. We see this floating balloon painting the mountain. It's very odd. Here he sold all kinds of weather by the yard. So one evening there came to him a 3.5 peck bushelman dressed in his best Sunday shoelaces. With him was a young idea with its buttons all neatly sewed on the wrong side. So just like, this is just completely dada absurdist humor. But this was in a comic book for like little kids. It was in a Funny Animal comic. Jingle Jangle Comics #2 in this instance. And so it'd be hard to describe because it's just so much stuff like that thrown at you. Just weird, kind of surreal ideas. When they were quite alone, the youthful yodeler carefully unbuttoned the young idea. Here's where I get some inside information. And he opens up the young idea. And then the young idea grows up. And now he has a head that says Beans Today instead of ID on it. Like, just crazy. I love this castle here. The crazy architecture there. So they go on this crazy adventure, which, once again, very hard to explain. But every single caption has got some kind of wordplay or just a bizarre observation. To be honest, I can't imagine kids liking this. I think kids would just be like, I don't get this. This is weird. And, you know, some kids' comics are like that. Like, they're so weird. Kids like that sometimes. But this is, like, intellectually weird. Like, all the captions are really, it's kind of adult humor. If you were like an adult surrealist or guy into Dada. Here's your sleeping chowder. Oh boy, and with dream puffs. After a couple of whiles, refreshments were served by an old nightmare. See, she's a horse. Fringed with moon dust. I really like these panel layouts too, how they just kind of all flow into each other. Different, you know, circular panels, all different sizes, some with no borders. There's so many goofy things packed in this one comic, art-wise and story-wise. He also does chicken fat. You know, he'll have just goofy things in the background, like Bill Elder and Wolverton would do. And then it ends completely nonsensically and oddly. I need more of these. These are great. I'm sorry. Since I'm not a kid, I do like them. He came in a short while to the very ham sandwich island and saw with happy joy the little zither. Now, quite Kirek, with the bushelman thanking a 4-foot yardstick maker who just pops in the story and is there at the end. Another find. I've never heard of this guy, Norman E. Jennett. He had a comic strip called Monkey Shines of Marceline. And this is from 1909. This is another guy who just kind of popped into comics for a little while and popped out again. But look at the beautiful style he has. Very like geometric shapes. This main character, this clown, he you know, wears this kind of billowing clown, whatever you call it, frock. I can't remember what they call that. So he's always making these crazy geometric shapes by whatever way his legs are going. There's also this little piece of shit kid who's always fucking with him. It's so weird how so many of these old comic strips, the humor is just based on just base cruelty. Where like every strip will be like, oh, I'm going to play a trick on this guy. And, you know, sometimes tricks are funny if it's like character based, like, oh, that guy's conceited, so I did this. These are just cruel, painful tricks. And I guess the audience just loved it. And I don't really get it. It's just like, okay, so he really fucked with this guy. And he almost killed him for a gag. But I gotta say, I love the way just this looks. Very graphic designy. So every episode's a different way, you know. This clown has a task, and that little kid tries to fuck with him. They're not very funny. This one's so odd. So apparently the clown has rheumatism. He can barely walk. He's got a crutch and a cane in the other hand. He notices a sign from the very same circus he works at. They need a fat man, $500 a week, which is way more than he makes. It's like, oh, I wish I was fat. And so the kid takes his crutch and he jostles this bee nest above the clown who's resting. The bees sting the shit out of him. He jumps in the lake to save himself. And apparently, bee stings are a cure for rheumatism. I don't know if there's any truth to that. If you know about this, please let me know in the comments below. It seems very doubtful. But he gets so many bee stings that he bloats up, so he looks like a fat man. So it's a happy ending. He gets the job, even though he's probably in agony from being stung by 8,000 bees. Just the colors and the line in this, so nice looking. So unfunny though, painfully unfunny, these strips. Love that. Just the way he dressed that clown's costume. It's like Art Nouveau or Art Deco. Something like a combination. I'm probably mixing up one of them. Sometimes the kid's not around to fuck with him. And he just has his own little adventures, which I like more. Look at the line work on that cloud. It's beautiful. And these are great biographies. They're not only biographies. I wish more books would do this. They actually kind of give us a critique or appreciation of the comic we just read by this artist. So, you get some context. Like, why is this guy considered good? What was his strengths? Maybe I didn't see them. They're doing the basic work of a good critic / scholar. And these are very enlightening. We get about 12 pages of all the contributors, maybe more than that. Really glad he had that in. He even does the sources, acknowledgments, and that's it for Art Out of Time. You guys, I highly recommend this book. I'm pretty sure it must be out of print by now, but it was published by Abrams, so I have a feeling it won't be that expensive. It probably got remaindered at some point. This probably didn't have much of an audience, but if you're a real comics fan, this is gold. This is total gold. So there's another one of these. He did kind of a sequel called Art in Time. I'll be looking at that in, I believe, 5 episodes. So probably a little less than a week if everything goes according to plan. And if I remember correctly, it's just as amazing. We'll find out, though, because I haven't looked at it in probably, 15 years. So Art Out of Time, Unknown Comics Visionaries, 1900-1969, edited by Dan Adel. Get it. It's amazing. The only problem is it's printed too small. But as long, just the fact that it can lead you on to discover more of these artists. So maybe some of these guys have been reprinted by like Sunday Press in a giant edition. Like I think White Indian has. I didn't realize how much I liked White Indian. Now I might go out and get that book. because I'd like to see those bigger. Though that one wasn't that bad as far as size. But some of those early strips, it's just like, nah, you can't do this. Come on. You got to print these bigger. But it leads the way. It holds up the torch and illuminates some of these unknown people who were forgotten by many. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time here at the Hercules-Petix Academy of Comic Book Studies.